Hi, welcome to Healing Harvest Farmstead. I thought I'd do an introductory video. That way if you guys want to know more about us, you can watch this. If you don't want to know more about us, you don't have to watch this. So, one of my two roosters. So about 13 years ago, my husband and I purchased this property. It's 20 acres in northeastern Wyoming. It's about 4 miles from where we actually live. We do live in town, we don't live out here. When we originally purchased this place, my only goals for it were to have horses and chickens. You've heard the chickens. I no longer have horses. They were becoming very expensive pasture ornaments. We did not have the time to ride them anymore, so we gave them to a really nice family who had just lost their kid horse, and their kids needed horses. They were good horses, so we gave them to them. We blessed somebody else. So, we have since decided we would like to move out here if we can afford to build out here. That will probably come in videos later. Like I said, that's going to be contingent upon whether or not we can actually afford it. Hi, Spark. Say hi. Prices are getting well out of our range. We probably could have afforded it 2 years ago, and with inflation the way it is, now is not the time. Interest rates, now is definitely not the time. So we will have plenty of other projects that I can walk you guys through though. My expertise is in gardening. I have been doing it mainly my whole life. My parents gardened, my in-laws gardened, my grandparents gardened, their grandparents gardened. Preserving food. My mother-in-law has taught me how to do a lot of that, and then I've researched and learned a lot of that on my own. So I will probably walk you guys through some of that as well. I do have a full-time 40-hour-a-week job, but on the side I start seeds and I sell those plants in my greenhouse in town. It's called Willowbrook Greenhouse. I don't turn a profit for myself. I do just good enough to support the business, and that's about it. But when I got the greenhouse for myself, people had asked me, will you grow me plants? And it got to the point where if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to get some money back out of it because it will be on such a large scale. But these people were interested in the same things I was. The whole reason I starting seeds was because I needed varieties that I knew would store well. I needed varieties that were good for canning, such as tomatoes. You don't want little teeny tiny tomatoes to can. You want large tomatoes to work with to can. Things of that nature. And other things. All of my gardening is not done chemically. I don't use chemical fertilizer, I don't use chemical pesticides, and I don't use chemical herbicides from start to finish. And that was something else that I didn't care for in the plants that I was getting from the big box stores. And there were some nurseries and greenhouses in surrounding towns, but they didn't carry the varieties I wanted. For instance, I need my onions to store well, and those are hard to come by. I'll get into that in the seed starting videos. But so another one of the reasons I moved my garden out here, I do have a garden in town. Don't mind the weeds. 2023 was a little hard on my husband and I. We'll get to that in a little bit. One of the other reasons I do the bulk of my gardening out here now is because we actually get more rain. We're only 4 miles away from where we live, but for whatever reason, the way the terrain is, the way the storms come through, we get more rainfall out here. So it would be silly to water, especially with chlorinated water, if I can just use God's water. So I do the majority of my growing out here. I'm still working on moving more of it out here. Some of it's just easier in town if it's kind of like a kitchen garden in town. Okay, quick, I need this to cook for supper, and there's where it's at. Spark? He's playing with the strings on my wind pants right now. So we would like to build out here, and I will walk you through that when or if we do. I'm going to try to say when, you know, not go into it negatively, but it may be a couple years, and that's okay. I'm learning patience. That is definitely something that farmsteading, homesteading, whatever it is you want to call it, will teach you. I would like to walk you guys through the failures as well as the successes, because I feel like we learn probably more from our failures than we do the successes. And I would rather you learn from my mistakes than your own, if it can be avoided. But I think with the way the economy is going and some of the so-called leadership we have, I don't like the looks of things, and I would like to be more independent. I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease last February, so about a year ago now. And I knew I didn't feel good for a long time, but the doctors couldn't figure out what it was. My thyroid results kept coming back perfectly normal, but they weren't testing for all of the thyroid hormones they should have been. And so it did turn out I do have an autoimmune disorder caused by the food I eat, which aggravates my immune system, which then decides to attack my thyroid. That gives me a whole host of issues. We can get into that at some other point. Anyways, that has forced me to be even more diligent in what I put in my body and what I don't. So I have to be gluten-free because of that. And I wouldn't say I'm gluten-free. That's pretty difficult. I would say I'm gluten-reduced as much as possible. They would also like me to stop consuming dairy, but that's dairy that is on the shelf. I don't get my dairy from the grocery store. I have a local friend and neighbor that I get raw milk from. Not right now, because that cow is now pregnant, and so they have dried her up, understandably, so that she can put all that energy into creating a healthy fetus and calf. But I have noticed when I was on the raw milk, it didn't seem to bother me. If I do try to do any creamer or cheese from off the shelf, it does kind of flare my Hashimoto's. So that being said, for a long time, I've felt like they put stuff in our food that is not meant to be consumed. I don't think they necessarily did it maliciously, like, oh, we're out to hurt people. I do think at some point they realized it was hurting people and decided that the profit margin was too good to try something different. If your food doesn't spoil, it's not food. I often find myself walking through the grocery store nowadays and just looking at stuff going, that's not food. There's no nutrition in that. So I will do some videos focused on that. I'm going to try doing some bone broth this year. I've never done it before, but it is very good for you. I can put some links down below too of some of the people I've been trusting with my nutrition, and just the history of where our food started from and has now ended up. Again, calling some of what we consume nowadays food is a stretch. So that being said, I do have chickens, mostly for egg production. I'm sure you can hear them in the background. I have not started butchering them yet. I intend to. Some of that is because I don't like the way chickens are raised in the big chicken houses. There's that open so he can get out the gate. It's just not humane. It's not respectable of the animal. And I think if we're going to take an animal's life to feed our own, we should at least give it a good life up until that point. So I hope to start butchering chickens this year. I have slowly over the years purchased a scalder and a plucker They are kind of expensive, so if you're just going to do 5 or 10 chickens, you should probably just do it by hand. I would like to do enough that I can feed my family and extended family. And I'm in my 40s. I don't want to work any harder than I have to. So right now I just have egg-laying hens, and I do have 2 roosters. You can hear them in the background. Yes, they do fight occasionally, but for the most part they don't. They know I'm in charge. If I yell, they take off. So here is their run. I will try to remember to put on here what size it is later. It's quite a few. Let's see, 12. It's probably a good 1,200 square feet, I would say. So the reason I have such a large run, let's see if I can get the chickens in the background there for you, is because we don't live out here. So there are days, especially like today, where I don't let them out of the run. All they have is the run to stretch and exercise. And I don't want them covered in fecal matter and feeling like they're on top of one another. So we did spend the money to put up a good sized run. We do have an automatic door in the, right there, you might be able to see her, in and out of the coop. So I don't have to be here at sunup to let these guys out. That automatic door does that for me, and it also closes. The run, so we did this in 2020 during the event. And if you remember right, lumber went up significantly in 2020. So we improvised. We have 20 acres that's mostly wooded. So that is why you see how we supported the roof. And that roof is hog panels and chicken wire for hawks and also raccoons. Raccoons are really prevalent around here, and they're very sneaky and mischievous. So this is more a coon-proof chicken pen than it is for aerial predators and coyotes. That being said, we do have chicken wire on the outside that is buried. Not very deep, doesn't have to be very deep. I think it's only about 2 inches, but then if anything like a fox or I can't think of what they're called, a weasel, tries to dig, once they hit that chicken wire, they'll just quit digging. We have had stray dogs come in and try to dig, and that has prevented them. I have never lost a chicken in this run. I have lost a chicken plenty of times when they're out being chickens. In the summer, my schedule changes, so they get to run every day in the summer. They don't spend much time in here. So you'll see all them girls in there. What are you girls doing? That is actually my broody pen, my outdoor broody pen. I have one inside the coop. I'll show you the coop, inside of the coop later when I get it clean this weekend. But I have a couple chickens that love to set and hatch eggs, and I am totally cool with that, because if there's ever a time when we can't buy eggs from a feed store or through the mail, that's going to be very handy. Yes, you could still try to incubate your own eggs. I've never done that. I don't know what that entails, but I do know it takes electricity. So if there's ever a time you don't have electricity, it sure would be nice to have a hen whose body temperature never drops. So that being said, I don't mind. And I think they're Splash Orpingtons that I got from Cackle Hatchery are the ones that go broody for me. And I mean, it's clockwork. I'm telling you, like April 10th, I'm gonna have 2 girls that want to sit on eggs, and I'm absolutely gonna let them. last year, none of them hatched. I don't know what the deal was. I went to Baumgart's and just got them 5 chicks apiece, and they raised those chicks just fine. Because I didn't think it was fair that they sat all that time and didn't have anything for their efforts. My roosters were roosters that were hatched by some of these other ladies. I've lost a couple of my broodies over the years, but I do have very good roosters. I even have friends in town that I've given eggs to, and they hatched out to be roosters, and they said they were the best roosters they ever had. So I would like to keep that lineage going as well. Generally, if you have a nice rooster, they will produce nice roosters. That being said, you also have to know that you need to let those roosters know who's boss from day one. And I will not put up with a mean rooster. Should I ever get a mean rooster, I will no longer have a mean rooster. Life's too short. Well, hi, Mama. Did you finally decide to come and join me? Yeah, you missed snack time. That's Mama Kitty. She was actually a very wild, very feral cat when my husband found her on the road, almost frozen to death as a kitten. We brought her here. I tamed her, and she gave us a litter of kittens that now hangs out all the time. This is my, I put it up mostly for potatoes patch. You'll notice everything's fenced in here. We do have a pasture lease. We lease it to a local gentleman, and he runs some cattle out here. Some of those little mini cows, not the Highlanders, but I can't think of the breed at the moment. But I will probably do some potatoes in here this year. I'm going to try to grow some heirloom corn and mill my own corn this year, since I can't have flour anymore, but I can have cornmeal. But I certainly don't want some weird GMO cornmeal. Kind of defeat the purpose of me trying to get healthier via what I eat. So I would like to do corn, maybe some sunflowers, and we'll see. I'll take you along for that too. My issue with this garden out here is it's a little harder to get water to, but I did strategically purposely put it in this spot because down here we have a small, it's not really a creek, because this is a tributary off of the main creek, but if we get enough rainfall, it does pretty much keep water in it through the summer. As you can see now, it's not running any water. In fact, the main creek is dry too, which is not completely uncommon for us here. In fact, as you can see, you see bare ground. It is January 2024, and there shouldn't be any sunlight. There shouldn't be any bare dirt. I should currently be walking in at least 2 feet of snow. So the El Nino pattern we're having right now, I think they called it a strong El Nino. It is making this northern area drier and warmer than it usually is. And then of course it's making the south a little cooler and wetter. They're predicting this to end in March and just kind of go to a neutral weather pattern, which for us means hot and dry. So we're already too warm, we're already too dry, and I have to think about that when planting my garden, because it's going to be harder for me to get water to. I also have to think about it because my husband and I are volunteer firefighters. I think my husband has been on the department for 17 years, and I have been on the department for about 13 or 14. I'm also a volunteer EMT, or I was up until this year. I let that go. So that being said, we'll probably do some videos for you too on how to be fire-wise when building a house or trying to maintain your property. Well, we even have our own, what's called a brush truck. It's a wildland fire fighting truck specifically for that, because you have different needs than you would for, say, stationary structure firefighting. But we'll walk you through some of that too, how we set it up, where we bought the truck. It might be a little bit bigger truck than most of you want. Sorry, sticks. But my reasons for purchasing the one I did was because it's a multi-fuel vehicle. It doesn't always have to have gas. It can run on diesel. It can also run on kerosene. And it's not easily stolen. You got to know what you're doing when you start it. And it's a stick shift. So it's also, I'm kind of walking you to it. It is also a go anywhere rig. We do use these on the department, and they are fabulous. What it is it's a refurbished 6x6. So these are military grade vehicles that their purpose was to get men to safety and get through some pretty harsh conditions reliably. So why wouldn't you want one of those, right? If you can get your hands on one. And we've used it for other things around here because they are a pretty powerful little machine. We'll walk you through that. So I mentioned earlier 2023 was kind of hard for us. So my husband's parents are in their 80s. We are in our 40s. So they're getting up there in years. They need more help, more care. And his aunt was widowed and had no children. There you go. There she is. And was diagnosed with cancer. And we promised her we would do everything in our power to keep her home. There she is. I don't know if you guys name your vehicles, but I named her Liberty. But we'll walk you through that one of these days, how we set that up, how to winterize it, how to unwinterize it, and how to run it. So anyways, his aunt was diagnosed with terminal cancer. She chose not to treat it. I don't blame her. You're in your 80s, chemo's hard on you. I don't know if you guys have ever had to watch somebody go through that. I did with my mother at the same time his aunt was going through this. My mom was in her 5th year of battling breast cancer. She was 69 last year. So my mom lost that battle in July. Even though she had cancer, the timing was actually very unexpected because her blood work had come back really good. In fact, they had just given her a chemotherapy treatment because her blood work was so good, and the next day her liver and kidneys shut down. She lasted for about 48 more hours and passed away. It was very hard on my dad. I mean, it was hard on all of us. But shortly after we finished planning her funeral, I haven't really talked about this a lot, but I think it's important for other women to know. So shortly after her funeral, I lost a pregnancy I didn't even know I could have. My husband and I don't have children. That was very hard in regards to the fact that I was both devastated and overjoyed because I was 42, and having a first pregnancy, having any pregnancy at 42 has its own dangers. Having your first one is even harder on you and the child. Not to mention, we knew we were trying to care for his aunt and his parents at the same time. So anyway, that being said, I had a lot of long conversations with God about why, and he put it on my heart that I just wanted you to know you could, But that's not the course I had for you in life to be a parent. I needed you to be an EMT. If we'd have had children, I couldn't have been a volunteer EMT as well as I was. And he needed us to be able to take care of these other people in our lives, which we could have done as parents, but it would have been far more difficult. Anyways, so I think it was around September, his aunt needed 24/7 care, started to need that. And it worked okay because I work evenings into late nights and my husband works early mornings throughout the day. So we were able to kind of do some shift work. And we had a lot of wonderful people in this little small community help us out. We do live in a very small community, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, which is how I like it. But that takes some adapting in its own right. I'm used to it because that's where I've always lived. But some people who are from some bigger cities, it would definitely be a culture shock for sure. But it does have its own perks. For instance, in the case of taking care of his aunt, it was wonderful to have people helping us coming in and helping us with food and care and making sure that on occasion we were able to go home and get some sleep. She passed away November 30th, peacefully, at her home, as we had promised. And in December, we moved his parents to Tennessee where they can get better care. They'll probably come back in the spring, but so that has kind of freed up our schedules a little bit. In October, my husband lost an uncle he was very close to. That was very unexpected, actually. We had ran a couple ambulance calls on him shortly before that, and we're trying to figure out what the heck was going on. And it turned out he'd had some silent heart attacks that ultimately took his life. But so it has been a year of loss, and I mean that's just the people in our lives. I've lost one of the kittens that Mama Kitty gave me. He's 4 years old. I don't know what happened. I'm gonna guess a predator. Coyotes have been pretty thick around here, but that's just unfortunately what happens. I wouldn't say you get used to it. I still haven't gotten used to it, but you just learn to accept it. But like I said, that's why I'm gonna go through some failures as long as successes, as well as some successes, because I think that's important. In farmsteading, homesteading, whatever you want to refer to it as, whatever your heart desires. I think it's a pretty romantic notion, and we all have it. I'm equally as guilty of that, the romanticism of it. And I don't think we always expect, and I don't think enough people talk about the failures and the lessons. And I think everybody as a community is getting better at that. I know I appreciate it, and that's why I would like to share my failures with you also, so that, like I said, maybe you can learn from those and don't have to make the same mistakes. So I think for now that's probably about everything. Oh, I didn't realize I did it, but I walked to the spot that my husband and I are planning on putting the house, should we ever get to put the house out here. Yep, we're gonna have to clear a lot of trees, but that's okay. They'll go right in the fireplace. You can always use it. Or if not, they'll go in the wood chipper, and I'll have wood chips for bedding for the chickens and for my compost. Especially when I butcher chickens, the pine wood shavings will be a good way to mask the odor of the decomposing guts. You've got songbirds out. It is January. We should not be having this weather, and those birds should be hibernating. That actually brings me to another thought. So we haven't went through this venture and just jumped all in. Like I said earlier, I slowly have bought the chicken butchering supplies over the years, even though I didn't have chickens to butcher yet. We bought the wood chipper last year. This year I think this year we might redo the fence. But start where you are with what you have and do what you can. Even the smallest steps are moving forward, and that's okay. I think that's probably better than trying to do everything all at once and sock your pocketbook all at once. You can do a little bit at a time, plan ahead a little bit. You're going to be a lot of frustration ahead. If I do anything this year, I guess I will need a mobile meat bird pen, because I do want to move them around the pasture, Joel Salatin style. My pasture needs it just as much as my chickens do. We don't have a lot of great grass here. As you can see, we're mostly trees. Talk about fire-wise, we have not done a good job at thinning out our trees, but we've been busy. And unfortunately, I think we're going to be busy fighting fires somewhere else this year. I hope it's somewhere else. I don't want it to be here. But anyway, all of that being said, I hope you like and subscribe. I hope I can bring you lots of good content. And I hope you're able to learn something, or if nothing else, at least get some entertainment, especially at some of our failures. I will try to get my husband on here a couple times. He tends to have a potty mouth, though, especially if he's mechanicking or something of that nature. But I will try to get some more manly videos on here, not just seed starting and gardening and animal husbandry type things. But I really do hope you guys get something out of this. And join us in our journey, because, hey, you know what? Have fun watching us fall on our faces a few times and setting goals, but not reaching them in the way we thought we would. But that's okay. If there is one thing I have learned well over the last 4 years, it is that to always trust God's plan. It is always going to be better than mine, and so is His timing. Patience is not a virtue of mine. He is working hard to teach me some patience, and I think this is how He's doing it too. But so yeah, just join us in this journey that I guess in a way I knew I was gonna be on 13 years ago, but also didn't. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope 2024 is blessed for you and good for you. And I sure as heck hope it's better for us than it was in 2023, because holy crap. But anyways, please join us. Bye.